All right, everyone, welcome back into another NFL DFS video where we are going to be breaking down everything for the Week 10 main slate, giving you guys my roster thoughts, some players that are coming in a little bit undervalued, some players that are coming in a little bit overvalued, give you guys kind of my last slick build as well as what we're going to be looking at for max entry type lineup construction as well. So with that, let's go ahead and get into it. So for the first time really all year, the quarterback position is, I don't want to say it's difficult, because throughout the whole season, the quarterback position has been difficult in the sense that we haven't had that many good options for the main slate specifically. Whereas this week, we have too many good options. It's like, all right, every good quarterback play that we've had throughout the whole year is basically on this slate. And so pricing consider-wise, guys like Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson are still great plays. But then we also have Matthew Stafford, Drake May, who I would still consider pretty solid plays given their matchups as well. Obviously, Matthew Stafford gets Puka. We like that. So like, there's really no negatives in regards to them as plays. Baker's probably a little bit priced up for his matchup, but then you got Caleb Williams, who's been going off recently in a phenomenal matchup against the Giants. He's a quarterback that we're going to want to be stacking. You also have Jared Goff in a great matchup against the Washington Commanders. You have Jackson Dart in a very good matchup against the Chicago Bears. We know that Dart has had a pretty high floor. You also have Marcus Mariota filling in for Jaden Daniels at a cheaper price tag. I don't think we necessarily need to get to him now as the week has progressed with some of the other plays that we have. As I called out in the core plays video, kind of my favorite and easy play for the week is Jacoby Brissett, who is still coming in pretty undervalued, guys. Coming in at about 5% projected ownership. And so with that, I think he ends up being a very solid play for us. Coming on off of 3 straight games of 20 plus DFS points. Sure, this is going to be a difficult matchup against the Seahawks, but we're getting him at 4.6. Like, to me, he's just the play that we need to be going out of our way to target. But I also want to talk about one other play as well, guys. Davis Mills. And the way I'm going to paint this picture here is by saying Geno Smith. Pretty simple here. So we all saw how rough it was for Geno Smith and the Raiders offense on Thursday Night Football, right? That was an ugly game. Geno Smith had a good game against the Jacksonville defense in the previous game. Okay, I don't think I need to say more in regards to the point I'm trying to get at. You attacked the Jaguars passing the football. And although I'm not expecting big things from Davis Mills, would it be that shocking for him to throw for like 250 yards and 2 touchdowns? Well, maybe not playing, all the best like film wise, but maybe on paper it ends up being a pretty good day. The stat sheet ends up looking better than maybe the film was. I could definitely see that end up happening, especially given the fact that the Jaguars are pretty solid at stopping the run. You do try to throw the football against them. And so Davis Mills at 4.5 is pretty interesting as well. And so again, guys, this is kind of the tough part about this slate. When we sort by projected points, Josh Allen's number 1, Jackson's number 1, Drake May's number 3. Okay, so those are kind of the easy pay-up plays if you want to get there. But then you have Dart, who does pop up as a pretty solid value, guys, 3.5x. And if we just sort it by value, he is going to be the second best value quarterback play on the slate, besides Jacoby Brissett. And as I mentioned in the core plays video, once more people were generating lineups and whatnot with Brissett in there instead of Kyler Murray, once that's been confirmed, his ownership is going to continue to go up. I would imagine it would settle in, I would think around 10%. If it doesn't get to 10%, then he's too low. And so when we're using the 9 to 5 lineup builder, I do want to set a min to get to him at about 10% of my builds. Dart probably around the same 10%. The interesting spot that we have that I didn't even mention is JJ McCarthy. I've already gotten some questions about JJ McCarthy as well, where people are wanting to stack him with either Justin Jefferson or Jordan Addison because those two players get pretty good matchups, and you have Jordan Addison being extremely cheap. I'm actually fine with that stack, but again, you guys are getting the point of starting with the quarterbacks. It's like, this is the first time where we've had to make a lot of decisions that could be very slate impacting decisions in regard to the quarterback spot. It has been more simple, whereas this week this is the difficult part about the slate, is getting the quarterback position correct. And all in all, I think the best strategy is to just kind of spread out your ownership and hope that you get the correct stack correct. And I do think that's going to be the approach to go with on the slate. But at the same time, my favorite quarterback play is Jacoby Brissett, who it is tough to get Trey McBride in a build. I don't necessarily want to get Michael Wilson to build with him. And then Marvin Harrison Jr. is kind of correctly priced. And so that's again, the difficult part. And so as I'm going through this slate, I'm just like, maybe we just try to be overweight on these values and hope that they kind of go off. So Brissett being one of them. I don't mind Mariota. We would need to get a rushing touchdown out of him for him to be extremely valuable. And even Davis Mills, guys, projecting to be a value of 3.2x, which is not terrible. Priced at 4.5, 14.5 DFS points. That's not too crazy to see that happening. And so that, again, that's kind of the tough part there. And for Brissett, it is worth calling out, guys, that they are 6.5 point dogs in this game, which that seems a little strange to me. I know the Seahawks have looked great. I told everyone to bet on them, or I told everyone that I thought their spread in their previous game was just egregiously bad, and they ended up going off and dominating. And I like the Seahawks, but the Cardinals have been pretty solid as well, especially with Brissett as their quarterback. So definitely some interesting spots, but let's go ahead now and jump on into the running back position. So as I called out in the core plays video, the slate has gotten a little bit easier in regards to the running back. So guys, once again, for running back, I think it is pretty simple. We are making a decision with James Cook or Devon Achane if we want to pay it for those two. I do consider them core plays, but they are more difficult to get to. And if we sort it by running back ownership, guys, it is kind of more simple, I would say there. But James Cook here is coming in about, like, let's just round it, 14%. I would rather, and I do view James Cook as the better play than Devon Achane. Okay. James Cook is in a game where they are 9-point favorites. Okay. He's going to be part of the reason as to why that occurs. We have him projected for 17 rush attempts and 1.5 receptions, which could end up being too low. He has almost a 90% chance to score a touchdown. Okay. That's not that high, but you see the projection, 0.8 for a rushing touchdown, 0.1 for a receiving TD. James Cook to me is just like the leverage spot here. And it's not like he's too undervalued. I just think when you compare him against Devon Achane, it should be basically the same. I know the thought process for Devon Achane, it's literally the fact that he has about 8 DFS points just baked in with his passing game. And it is a negative game script, so they're going to throw the football more. Okay, I get that. But obviously, the easy play is going to be Rico Dowdle. He is chalk. He's chalk for a reason. We have him projected for, 22 and a half opportunities in a game where they are going to be 5.5 point favorites. Yeah, he's the easy cash play there. We look at Junkins. So this is a play that I mentioned. So I do like Junkins. Okay, so obviously the Jets defense has gotten much worse here with the trades that they made. And then you got reports saying that they want to get Junkins the football. He is projected to get 19.5 rush attempts. And then he's also projected to get 1.4 receptions. And so if he ends up doing that in a game where they're actually the favorites, I think that ends up being a pretty good spot there as well, but he's correctly owned. Really, the only GPP shot that I think we have on the slate in regards to players that are coming in undervalued potentially would be with Kenneth Walker here. Kenneth Walker in a game where they are 6.5 point favorites. Okay, guys, so Kenneth Walker ended up getting a majority of the snaps in the last game. Prior to it being a blowout, he ended up seeing 70% of the running back snaps. Ended up only with 54% total, though, so we don't necessarily like that. But he ended up with 13 opportunities. Looked like the better running back as he basically has the whole year. He's a little bit touchdown dependent, but again, they are the favorites to win this game. And you would kind of argue that if he is going to be treated that way as the clear RB1, then he is someone that we should be considering. But it's not like he's even egregiously undervalued in regards to ownership. I would say that makes sense, okay? But it's more in regards to this being a spot where we have a player that could potentially go off at a very low ownership. That's how we're looking at it. It's not like the Woody Marks call, from week 4, where I'm like, this guy is clearly undervalued. Let's just jump on this play. It's not that. This is looking for a leverage spot. And there's just a difference there, whereas one player just stands out in regards to being too low priced. Ownership just is egregiously low then as a result as well, whereas this is me looking for a player that's low valued that could go off. So I did want to make that clear. And so just to recap, guys, the core plays to me were Rico Dowdle, James Cook, Devon Achane, okay? But we also do need to be considering Junkins, and then another core play that I had was Travion Henderson, who should be able to get around 70% of the opportunities or snaps again in this game, and probably around 70% of the opportunities as well. So not terrible there. And I've been getting to him a little bit more so than someone like Devon Achane. Now it is worth calling out. We do have, I would say, a little bit of a tough spot with the Chicago Bears running backs going against the Giants as well. Would it be shocking to see one of the two go off? The Bears running backs in the spot? No. You have DeAndre Swift, who is still currently questionable, but he is expected to play. Now, he didn't practice on Friday. Okay, so if he does end up sitting, then we're looking at Kyle Monangai to be an easy core play. And this is where, honestly, if Swift ends up sitting, we'd probably just be looking at some extreme value at the running back position where we could just go Dowdle, Monangai, and Henderson and be looking at around 20 opportunities on average between those three running backs at a price tag of, max price tag of 6.3. And so then we have a lot of value left over to really pay up for the receivers. And that is something I think we want to be doing on the slate. Then I do need to just mention, guys, Amari DiMercato was the RB1 for the Cardinals. Okay. And again, the Cardinals are not the favorites in this game. They're 6.5-point dogs. And so with that, if he's going to still be kind of the RB1, and I say it that way, like Bam Knight still outsnapped Amari DiMercato 57%, but we saw DiMercato start and play more at the start of the game. And Amari DiMercato ended up with 15 opportunities in that game, whereas Bam Knight had 11. And so if they're playing from behind, DiMercato has kind of been touted as the pass catching down back. And so that's where he could potentially be active or appealing here, guys. And I would say they both look good. It is a little bit of a hot hand situation, but I did need to call that out because if he's going to be the RB1 in a game where they are playing from behind, I do think it's worth that potential dart throw to be on him 4%. And maybe he scores a touchdown and ends up being a valuable asset in GPP lineups. All right, guys, so I do want to jump into the receiver position. This is both easy and difficult. Easy in the sense that, yes, we know these top three plays are all the top three plays on the slate. We want to be getting to them. So Puka Nacua has a very high floor, assuming he stays active throughout the whole game. JSN's had a heavy target share. He looks very appealing. And then ASB in a very good matchup against the Washington Commanders. The concern with ASB would be that the game gets out of hand too fast and maybe Jameson Williams goes off. I do like Jameson Williams in lineups, especially obviously there with Jared Cook. But that, again, guys, that is the issue with this slate is we do have those easy pay-up plays, and I kind of just think we're doing that. So for me, it is tougher to get to some of these other, potentially valuable assets. Rome Odunze did have a poor game in the last game. DJ Moore ended up having a good game, and I've been saying this for a while. I'm like, it's just weird that we haven't had a DJ Moore game yet from Ben Johnson, where Ben Johnson specifically designs plays for DJ Moore. That's been the value, okay? And some people might have not noticed this. It's like when Rome Odunze was going off at the start of the season, that was due to Ben Johnson. It just was. Like the plays were designed to be plays that hit for Rome Odunze. Whereas last week we saw a bunch of plays that were designed to be more for DJ Moore. And so anyone that's telling you that they know exactly what's going to happen between that receiver, like those two receivers, they're just lying to you. I think it's a good opportunity to just mix and match some exposure to them. Obviously, you're playing Caleb Williams. I would say one of those two in every build. I don't know if we need to necessarily get to more. Again, Jordan Addison is an appealing play in JJ McCarthy stacks. Wendell Robinson, if you are playing Dart, is very appealing, but also just as price tag in this match against Chicago is very darn appealing there as well. And then a player at the start of the week that I mentioned that I really liked, and I think is still going to end up being fine, is Parker Washington. He still should be the receiver number one, at least for this week, even though they did trade for Jacoby Myers, which we'll end up seeing just how much of a role Jacoby Myers has. And when I say receiver one, I mean in regards to his role, like in regards to being the top receiver. And again, I've been saying this for quite some time this whole season, so the last couple of weeks have not been shocking to me. Sorry for anyone that drafted Brian Thomas Jr. in season-long leagues. But as the week has progressed, and as we know that Ricky Pearsall is going to be out, Jawan Jennings, just as price tag, kind of taking over for the receiver number one role for the Niners, is starting to become more and more appealing to me as the week has progressed. 4.6, that is too cheap. I think it ends up being a great play for us. Malik Washington, I don't mind as a punt play. Demario Douglas at 4K, I don't mind as a punt play. And then we do kind of have to just mention Michael Wilson. Like, not terrible, guys. Like, again, with Brissett being the quarterback, he's had a decent floor, 7, 8.4, 9.1 DFS points. Like, not terrible. Again, they're playing from behind, pass-heavy script. Maybe he gets a little bit more production. And then Devon Valet should be in for a little bit more work this week. With Shaheed getting traded, he could actually end up being the receiver number 2 now as a result. They did trade for him. His role has been very strange. More of someone just to pay attention to maybe for next week, because I doubt his price tag will rise. And so just taking a peek at the receiver ownership, guys, I just think naturally like Puka is going to end up being the better leverage just because people are trying to get to ASB and JSN more so than him. I get it. I think I just end up wanting to get to him about 20% of the field. And then the other two, probably just about the same, just being even weight with the field. Robinson, I'm probably getting closer to about 15% compared to about 10%. Jalen Waddle is also a player that I probably want to be double the field on him just because he is someone that has been extremely productive with Tyreek Hill, no longer obviously he is still there technically, but not playing with Miami. And then like Juwan James, who I mentioned, I do like, he's just coming in properly valued as well. So we're getting, it's almost like a straightforward slate, and it's almost like it's tough to provide an insane amount of analysis when the slate is, we have a bunch of good quarterback plays and all the receivers are a little bit too cheap. So we just naturally want to spread our exposures out to them and then just nail those easy running back plays that we have like that. That's the nature of the slate. Now, on top of that, guys, though, we do have the tight ends. And so because we haven't had like too much value in the sense of plays under 4K that have been like phenomenal. Parker Washington was last week. Don't get me wrong. Kamanon guy as well. Obviously great there. But due to roster construction, we've seen a lot of tight ends be in some of the top lineups, 2 tight end lineups be in the top lineups. And so I do think we need to consider that. And when we just naturally do lineups here, let's see, are we going to, oh, we're just on tight ends here. Let me rerun this. When we run this, when I did it for the first look build, we had a lot of lineups that were just naturally 2 tight end builds. So let's just see if that's still happening now, and it is. And so that's kind of the difficult part to me, is that we are still getting a lot of 2 tight end builds, guys. Kade On, Sam Laporta. Okay, so that's the difficult part. I don't know if we necessarily need to do that, especially if we get DeAndre Swift being out again. But the tight end that I like the most, especially in regards to roster construction, has been Greg Dulcich. If he ends up getting 60% of the snaps compared to like 50% that he got in the previous week, operating in that valuable role of Jonnu Smith and the Darren Waller role that has been extremely productive. I mean, he almost ended up, or he did end up with like 10 DFS points in his first game with Miami on a short week for him. And like, it's just, I think he ends up being a great play. Like, I'm probably getting to him like way overweight on the field. I'm going to bump up his fantasy score to tell the data I want to be on Greg Dulcich, and I might even do 8. I'm just telling the data I want to be on Greg Dulcich a bunch. Sure, we'll cap him at about 30% exposure, but I think that ends up being a good spot. Now, another question that I have is, you guys know that I've mentioned Colson Loveland a decent amount the last 2 weeks. And it does feel like he has taken over as the tight end number 1 in that offense. And so if he is, I think we just want to get to him about 7%, double the field if he's going to be coming in under 5% pretty much. So another tight end play that I want to be going out of my way to target, but we don't necessarily need to go crazy. And then after that, I think I'm just okay getting to the tight ends that are popping up as some of the better plays. Hunter Henry's more of a TD dependent play. I don't mind him for GPPs, but we're capping at about 10%. David Njoku, not terrible, probably properly valued there. And his ownership and just production is definitely based on whether or not Harold Fannin ends up playing. If he ends up playing, then we're probably not looking at Njoku too much. Especially if like Cedric Tillman ends up being back, I would still think we're going to see a dominant amount of 2 tight end sets out of them, but we could see a little bit less with Tillman being back. And so in regards to like just roster construction, I think I'm fine having tight end, receiver, and running back in there, all of them in there. We do want to be forcing the QB stack with a pass catcher for the slate specifically. Okay, we do want to do that. And so again, kind of just getting back into the quarterback position. Let's just build up some of these plays a little bit more just to get our proper exposure. So Drake May will get to about 8%, Jacoby Brissett, Jackson Dart, JJ McCarthy, Josh Allen. Just want to be making sure we're getting proper exposure to them. Sam Darnold, I get about 4% as well. Nothing too crazy there. Caleb Williams, I do want to get 8% at least. He is someone that could break the slate. Then everyone else is properly valued. Now, I will probably have to adjust max exposures just to ensure we're not getting too high valued plays, high owned of plays. But it does feel like just, again, once a straightforward week. So we'll go ahead and just get into the top plays on the slate. Like, I do think I want at least 4 the top plays on the slate. So even CMC's in play. I didn't even mention him, but just as price tag, I am getting to HN, Cook, Henderson, Rico, and then also if Monangai is starting, if with Swift out, then he just ends up being, again, the best play on the slate, like I said last week. But Puka Nacua, CMC will get in there. JSN will get in there. Devon HN will get in there. Rico, Cook, Henderson, St. Brown. And so those 4 plays, I do think we want to be building our builds mostly around them. I think that ends up being the direct path. And so we'll add that group, we'll click save, and then we'll just naturally let the lineup builder do what it does. And while that's running, let's just go ahead and kind of close out this first look build, kind of last look build as well. It is basically the same as the core plays video, guys. I think we're just going to Jacoby Brissett as the quarterback play. I do think going to the Jags DST makes a lot of sense going against Houston with Davis Mills there. The Jaguars defense has been solid. Now that being said, I do think you can get away with the Cardinals DST. Again, my typical strategy regards to defense and tight end is go with the lowest price DST or tight end. Well, for DST, it's the DST that's not going to go negative. For tight end, it's the lowest price tight end that gives you the best chance to 3x. And so I do think that the Cardinals are technically the team that is the most likely not to go negative. That's also the cheapest. You also have the Saints there that aren't a terrible option, but I do think this week the Jaguars have a greater chance to be able to get to double-digit DFS points at a cheap price tag, given the matchup, and so that's kind of why I'm doing that. Again, Greg Dulcich, I feel like just the ownership's too cheap right now. I get it. The matchup's terrible, right? But even if the game ends up being a blowout, he is someone that should be a valuable. He should still get playing time. And so that leaves us with, a cheap receiver play that we can get to. I do like Wendell Robinson. And the other build was me getting to Junkins instead of Monangai and then playing Juwan Jennings, which I also like. Now, the issue with this build is what I think you guys all know, Jacoby Brissett alone. And he does have the ability to get the tush push, if you will, the 1-yard QB sneak and maybe score a touchdown for us. That would be the only path in which this would have any GPP type of winning upside is if he does that. And if he does that twice, obviously we would like to be on Trey McBride or Marvin Harrison Jr. with this build, but that's not something you're going to do hand build wise. And so let's see what the 9-5 lineup builder just spit out to us. And so we'll take a peek. What is the top lineup? It's going to be Brissett, all right, like that. CMC, Devon Achane, JSN, Zay Flowers. Zay Flowers is fine. I don't necessarily feel like I need to get to him, but okay. So we are seeing Michael Wilson paired up with Jacoby Brissett. Again, I don't mind that considering the price tag of Michael Wilson. Clearly too cheap, but I think we're kind of seeing why that's happening. Vikings DST, I'm probably want to set a rule because I do like, again, the Cardinals DST more than the Vikings DST. So I'd probably just tell it I want to get more of the Cardinals DST and just bump up their projections a little bit there. Let's sort of by ownership as well. So a lot of chalk in that first build, don't get me wrong, but the top ownership build is going to be Jackson, Achane, Henderson, St. Brown, Zay Flowers, Leggett. Don't necessarily like that. Henry, Rico, and then Vikings DST. So kind of interesting there. But let's just see kind of the ownerships that we're getting here, guys, for the quarterbacks and see if there's any things I want to adjust. So about 20% of Jacoby Brissett. Do we necessarily need to get 20% of him? Probably not. But I am okay. If that's the max exposure, I probably should set at 25. But I think I'm okay with that. Dart at about 14%. Again, I'm probably okay with that. We'll set him at 25. Get into Josh Allen about 15%. I'm okay with that. Again, don't want to get too crazy with him. Here's where with JJ McCarthy, I would probably just say I want to get in the sweet spot of 5 to 8%. I do worry about his GPP winning upside. I don't want to go crazy with him. And same thing with Davis Mills. I do want to be on him about 5%, but I don't think we need to be more than that. So we'll cap him about 7% as well. Mac Jones, I don't necessarily love that much. I probably want to get to more Caleb Williams. I probably want to spread this out a little bit more than what we are currently doing. And so maybe I would have to actually bump Brissett down. But again, the whole point of Brissett is he's just clearly too cheap for how well he has played lately. We'll see running back wise what we're getting here. We would definitely want to spread it out more, but it is, again, a heavy concentration of Rico, HN, Henderson, and CMC, and James Cook. I'm actually okay with this. We probably want to get a little bit more exposure to that position. Receiver-wise, get into a lot of St. Brown, JSN, Puka. We could end up capping this, obviously, to maybe closer to 35% for these two. I do want to get to Puka more than everyone else, and that it is forced to go with a value route here. Okay, so that's what we're seeing here with Coker and Wilson. So if we're forcing a QB stack with a pass catcher, that's part of the reason as to why that's happening. If we're looking for a value, I think Zacchaeus is still fine. But that's what I'm seeing here. That's the difference that we have to make there. And that's occurring because of that grouping rule that we made. And so another way to go about grouping players together would be, one, just bump this down to 3 of them in all of our builds. Okay. Or you just bump up the projections for all those players that you actually want to be on more so. Okay, so that'd be just another workaround. And then tight end wise, this is probably where I'm going to lose people, but I don't mind this. Dulcich, probably a little bit too high. getting to the max of 30%, but he's the value on this slate. I do want to get to more of Trey McBride. I would definitely bump this up to like 10%, especially with the rosters that we are, generating here. And then same thing with Colson Loveland. I want to get to more of him, and we're going to have to bump up his fantasy score a little bit more so there. So I do think that leaves you guys with kind of a final grasp on really what we're looking at for this slate, and I think that puts us in a good path for this slate as well. So hopefully you guys enjoyed the coverage. If you did, make sure to leave a like, subscribe to the channel as well. Again, it's both a straightforward slate, but also kind of a wide open slate as well. We know that we're going heavy on a certain amount of running backs. We have a lot of clear top end receiver value, and then it's just working in the correct quarterback stack with the last receiver or tight ends into our builds, and we are getting some pretty good cheap DSTs that should help us build some pretty darn good lineups this week. But that's all, guys. Thank you for watching. Good luck with all your lineups. If you guys would like access to any of the tools that you saw throughout this video, make sure to head on over to 9to5sports.com, get access to all the tools for a low monthly cost of $10 a month. Appreciate you guys being here. Good luck, and as always, let's keep cashing.